Hey, what's ready? Welcome back to News Dose. And last week there was a rumor floating around that I thought was just unbelievably absurd. So I didn't cover it because it just didn't make any sense. And I'm glad I didn't, because today it was more or less revealed why Sony keeps expanding the PlayStation ecosystem beyond just their consoles. I mean, there is this question right now about how the future of console gaming will look. And while I don't necessarily think that Sony will go down the same path as Xbox in terms of their multi-platform plans, or at least in how fast Microsoft is transitioning, but there is a reason to believe that Sony, yes, could expand more over the next 10 years. And today's topic is going to go over exactly that. First, though, I do want to thank my supporters on Patreon and on YouTube memberships. Thank you just so much for what you do, and you will receive this video through early access. Let's go and get right into things, though, starting off with the Analogue 3D. As we talked about a few days ago, reviews have been rolling out, and honestly, it sounds like Analogue pulled it off once again. Reviewers are raving about how good it is, and seemingly it is now the best way to play Nintendo 64 games in the modern era. However, one of its biggest issues is just that it's not readily available. I mean, it's always ironic to see a product review for, a product that isn't actually for sale. So here we have hundreds of thousands of people tuning in for these reviews, and for what? They can't actually buy it. But the good news here is that's about to change. Analogue just announced the first restock, which will take place on Monday, November 24th at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And I'll tell you right now, if you are interested in the Analogue 3D, my recommendation is to be there bright and early. Have your alarm set, because if it sells out, which there's a good chance that it will, then it's hard to say how long it'll be before the next restock again. I mean, Analogue might be well known for making fantastic consoles, there's no doubt about that, but they're also infamous for having hard-to-get consoles. Now, Ubisoft has been making waves these past few weeks because they previously halted trading without much of an explanation. So immediately, as soon as people heard that, it caused all kinds of hysteria online, and there was a lot of speculation that maybe they had been acquired, but no, that's not actually the case. They finally gave us an update today, and it was apparently just because of a simple accounting issue and nothing more. So they're now back on the market once again, and they did claim that the Assassin's Creed series as a whole has overperformed for them, which includes Assassin's Creed Shadows. Now, that line has been scrutinized just because Ubisoft didn't technically say if Shadows was a big success on its own. Instead, they combined it with the entire series and just lumped them all together, which, you can kind of take that as you will. They gave numbers for Assassin's Creed Mirage, but for whatever reason, not Shadows. But either which way, the series as a whole has been performing well, which is all the more reason that Tencent invested into the franchise in the first place. It really is a massive series with a lot of staying power. Oh, and it's also been a really fun year for Silent Hill fans, which is actually pretty cool to think about. Fans of this series has had to wait for a long time, to put it lightly. But Silent Hill over the past 12 months has probably been more relevant than it has maybe possibly even ever. Both the Silent Hill 2 remake and Silent Hill F turned out to be spectacular games. And according to Konami, this is just the beginning. Today, they confirmed that more Silent Hill games are in development alongside the already announced Silent Hill 1 remake and Silent Hill Townfall. So I'm thinking maybe Silent Hill 6 and potentially a Silent Hill 3 remake. That's just two guesses, but again, fun times for Silent Hill fans. In fact, they also revealed the trailer for Return to Silent Hill. It's a live-action film based on Silent Hill 2 and will launch on January 23rd. All right, now I want to go ahead and get into this PlayStation story, but first I actually do need to rewind to last weekend because there was a lot of noise that PlayStation was going to pull back on their PC releases, and when I first heard that, I immediately thought to myself, there's no way that this is true, because frankly, it just doesn't make a lot of sense, which I'm going to circle back to that here in just a moment. However, this all apparently started because Jez Corden mentioned some vague rumors that he had heard on a podcast. And immediately, people ran with that story as some kind of confirmation. PlayStation is going to step away from PC. Now, he later clarified that what he said during that podcast was not a serious report or leak and that he shouldn't be used as a source. So, that should have been the end of the story, but you know how the internet works. Once something's out there's always going to be people that are going to run with it no matter what. But in this case, it didn't take that long before we got more news that directly connects to this story. And personally, I think it tells us everything that we need to know. Now, this comes from Alinea Analytics, and they posted a big report for their estimated sales of PlayStation games on Steam. And check this out. According to them, Sony has made $1.5 billion on Steam with a total of 43 million units sold. You can see here that they estimated that Helldivers 2 sold 12.7 million units, Horizon Zero Dawn at 4.5 million units, God of War at 4.2 million, Days Gone at 3.4, and Spider-Man at 2.7 million units sold. So obviously the big winner here is Helldivers 2, which interestingly is the only day one release of the bunch. Now, maybe we can call that a coincidence, but what I will say here is that a lot of Helldivers 2's success is owed to Steam's user base. Personally, I don't think that Helldivers 2 would have blown up the way that it did if it would have been exclusive to PlayStation. I think a lot of its success is because of Steam's user base, and that's why at the very least, Sony needs to put their live service games on PC day and date. In fact, they've already kind of teased that a few different times already. Now, for their single-player games, on the other hand, Alinea Analytics did point out a rather alarming trend. They claimed that the novelty of PlayStation games on Steam have seemingly worn off over time. And what they mean by that is that the sequels aren't selling as well. They said that God of War Ragnarok, Horizon Forbidden West, and Spider-Man 2 have all sold significantly less than their predecessors. Now, I'm going to go and point out that that's been a trend on the PlayStation 5 as well. This is not exclusive to PC, but even still, Alinea Analytics made sure to note that even though they've sold less units, they're still far from struggling. They've been very successful on PC and have made Sony a lot of money, and that right there is the most important thing to Sony specifically. As long as they're making money, then they're going to keep doing it. And in fact, they acquired an entire studio for this exact initiative, being Nixxes. They did that for a reason, because their specialty is porting games to PC. So this entire idea that they're going to just simply pull back from PC, I just don't think makes a lot of sense. That they're already invested heavily into the PC platform. And honestly, plus on top of that, and probably most importantly, is that it hasn't exactly impacted their consoles. Now, part of that might be because they launched their single-player games exclusively on PlayStation first, and I think that might be a question worth asking. Will they eventually do day-and-date single-player PC games in the future? And I think for right now, and this is just my prediction, but I don't think they're going to do that anytime soon. I think the PlayStation 6 will follow a similar strategy that the PS5 template has set. But at the same time, over the next 10 years, it's really hard to say what's going to happen. Gaming is changing more now than we've ever seen before. If you asked me if PlayStation games were going to be on PC 10 years ago, I probably wouldn't have believed you. If you would have said that PlayStation might launch some games on Xbox and Nintendo, I wouldn't have believed you, yet here we are. So I don't think that I can say that it definitively will never happen, because honestly, there is a reason to believe that they could possibly expand more over time. Like I said, I don't think it's going to happen immediately, but PC gaming continues to grow, and the more success that Sony has on PC, the more likely it becomes that they will do more of that in the future. It kind of reminds me of what happened last year. Xbox ported a few of their games over to PlayStation, and at first they told everybody, it's just these 4 games, nothing more. But then once Microsoft noticed just how much money they could make, that quickly changed their strategy to there's no red lines. Because that's the thing. These businesses are all about the money. And if PC gaming is lucrative for Sony, then you can bet that they will continue to expand. In fact, I think we're already seeing a reason for them to do that, just considering they've already made a lot of extra money that they wouldn't have otherwise without the addition of PC. Let me know what you all think about this, though. Do you think that Sony will accelerate their PC plans in the future, or do you think that they're just going to keep it as is? All right, now, one last thing before we go, though, because we got another update for Prince of Persia, The Sands of Time Remake. Sounds like a re-reveal is on the way sometime here soon, and that's because Insider Gaming reported this. They said, according to sources close to the game, the Prince of Persia Sands of Time Remake is scheduled to release in mid-January of 2026. In addition to the release plan, sources believe it's likely that the next look at the game will come at the Game Awards on December 11th, 2025. That's always where the official date could be revealed. So, there you go. This game has been in development for a very long time, and I know a lot of people really despised its first reveal. I mean, Ubisoft had to completely reboot the game with a completely different studio, but after all of these years, it sounds like a re-reveal is imminent. I just hope that it lives up to expectations this time, and I just have to say, Ubisoft takes a lot of heat for various different things, but I have to give them props for sticking with this game. You know, they could have canceled it after its first reveal, but they didn't. And just kudos to them for that. Now, if only we could get an update for Beyond Good and Evil 2 and the Splinter Cell remake, but either which way, this is still a good start. Anyways, though, that's going to be for this episode, but until next time, make sure to subscribe, ring that bell, and peace out.